This is sort of an honorary seventh principle on which our Constitution and our government's based on. It's the idea of flexibility. So the founding fathers recognized that one of the problems in the article system was that it was almost unchangeable. 13 out of 13 states had to agree to change it. And it made a system that really couldn't be changed at all, and it quickly became outdated. They wanted to make sure the Constitution was a living document, meaning that it could be changed, it could be updated. They realized that if the government was successful and the country was successful and it lasted for hundreds of years, the circumstances of the country would be very different in the future than they were when the document was written. So they wanted the Constitution to be changeable, but they didn't want it to be easily changed. So they established amendment processes that allowed changes to be added to the Constitution. And think about how different our country is today than it was when the document was written. Thankfully, changes and updates have been possible because of the amendment process. Now, there's two types of amendments. You have formal amendments, which we're going to focus on first. Formal amendments are called formal. We'll talk about the word formal a lot during the course of the year. Formal means that you can actually find the guidelines in the Constitution. So this is the actual process in the Constitution that's described on how to add changes to the Constitution, how to add amendments. 27 times in our country's history, we've gone through the formal amendment process. The first 10 all come in as a package deal, the Bill of Rights, but then we've had 17 since. So it is changeable, but only 27 complete changes in our country's history isn't all that much. It's not easily changed. So the formal amendment process is two parts. The first thing that happens is you have to propose the amendment. So there are two ways that an amendment can be introduced. Like, hey, I have an idea, and the most common, actually, the only method that's been used is that 2/3 of Congress, both houses, 2/3 of Congress agrees that the idea is proposed. So a member of Congress is like, I have an idea, and then 2/3 of Congress agrees with him. The actual amendment idea is officially proposed. There's a mechanism that's also in place that allows 2/3 of the states to also sort of propose an amendment. That's never been used. All 27 times, the amendment has been proposed by Congress. And then once Congress proposes it, it's really up to the states to ratify or to approve the amendment. And there's two options again on how an amendment that's proposed can be approved. The first method is the one that's been used 26 out of 27 times. This is that 3/4 of the state legislatures debate and then vote on the amendment. So this would be like our state legislature that meets in Harrisburg. They would decide on the amendment. Do we want to support it or not? The other option is that each state could have special elections to literally have its citizens vote for people that would go to a special convention that would exist just to vote on this amendment. You're not using the already existing state legislatures, you're having a special election. This has only been used once, which is when the 21st Amendment was approved, and that was the amendment to repeal or undo prohibition, which made alcohol illegal in this country. 26 times, it's gone from here to here, and then once it's gone from here to here. But that's how you actually formally amend the Constitution. That's been done 27 times. You also have what are called informal amendments. These are other ways in which the government changes, but you don't go through the formal amendment process. So, for example, actions of Congress have the ability to change the way our government exists. For example, Article 3 was really brief in establishing the judicial branch. Congress passed a bunch of laws that added to the judicial branch, changed the way the government worked without going through a formal amendment. Actions of the president. So there are things called executive orders and executive agreements that aren't in the Constitution. Executive orders are sort of like laws, but they're sort of made by the president instead of Congress. And executive agreements are sort of treaties, but they don't have to be approved by Congress. These are things the president has done that aren't in the Constitution that have dramatically expanded his powers, and it's changed the way that the government operates. Or just like customs and traditions. Political parties are not mentioned in the Constitution, but they developed and they've greatly changed the way our government operates. Term limits are not actually initially for presidents in the Constitution, but the idea was that all the early presidents, up through really President Roosevelt in the 1930s, decided they were just going to abide by the two-term limit, which is tradition, kind of changed the way the government operated. So this is how the government really changes more, which is informally. These are just day-to-day things the government does to change the way the government operates without going through the method actually described